Hey guys and welcome, it's Kali from the Ambitioneers, and today we are going to talk about a really interesting subject which I kind of been doing a study lately and gathering some knowledge. And by the way, ignore my mess in the room. I've been doing a lot of moving lately, so hopefully it doesn't distract you. And yeah, basically I want to talk with you guys about why I believe the GTA San Andreas map is superior than the GTA 5 map. And I don't want to say that the GTA 5 map is bad. I want to give this disclaimer at first because it's clearly not. It's one of the best game maps of all time, right? That's why I believe the game is still so successful nowadays. It has just such a realistic open world, right? But only because something is the best at something, I don't believe there's no room for improvement. And we're going to talk about what Rockstar could have done better in the GTA 5 map, in my opinion. You can share your feedback and your thoughts about this down below in the comment. We can discuss about it. I think it's a really interesting subject to discuss because I've been doing all this kind of stuff for Roxwood County because you guys probably are aware we are doing a map expansion project for GTA 5, and I kinda don't want to just reuse the design philosophy GTA Rockstar Games did. I want to improve upon it, right, and see what people really want to see in a game map. Because I believe in today's industry, gaming industry, it's kind of like most games are really not putting the correct focus, right? All people just say, hey, we want bigger maps. While I believe, in my opinion, people don't want bigger maps, they just want more stuff to do in the map. And they kind of, just say bigger maps so they have more stuff to do. But in the contrary, when you have a bigger map, you have less to do and the map becomes more boring. That's why I believe the size doesn't matter, but content does matter. And I kind of want to learn about it, right? Because I'm not a guy who just wants to put an 8K parallax texture on every model just so it looks like a good graphically map. But I really want to design a really good gaming map, and I believe the GTA San Andreas gaming map is one of the best gaming maps. I have no idea how much I did say gaming, but it's one of the best designed gaming maps of all time. And I really want to dive deep into this subject because I think it's really, really interesting. We're going to split this in three categories: roads, building structures, and terrain. So we're going to start with roads. So what GTA San Andreas did better than GTA 5 in regards to the roads is the complexity. And I don't mean like the complexity in like with the turning lanes and stuff, because that's where the GTA 5 map is basically way more superior, right? Like you have way more complex, intersections and stuff. But I'm more talking about road network, and I believe I kind of understand the decision, right? Basically, the GTA 5 map was designed for players, so it's easily navigatable. But I believe that's what gave San Andreas so much charm, is all these challenging roads, right? These windy roads through the countryside and all this elevation, especially at San Fierro. It gave the game some charm, and the driving experience was more memorable, right? It was more memorable. I think the driving in GTA 5 is so forgettable because if you think about it, most people are like saying driving through the countryside in GTA San Andreas has such a vibe. For example, listening to KDST and driving through the countryside, it's a really nice experience, right? But in GTA 5, it kind of got lost, and I'm going to explain to you why. And it's not because roads like these doesn't exist at all, because clearly there is. Like you can see all these winding roads through the mountains, and it's a really interesting road layout because you have so much elevation, and that's exactly what people want, right? It's like some challenge in a so the driving is more memorable and just more like fun. But I think this charm gets lost because of the interstates. There's no reason driving through the slow road. When was the last time you actually used this road? Like, when was even the last time you drove through this tunnel? It's not like the places like these don't exist in GTA 5. They're just so much. They're just useless. That's the issue. And if you want to go from the city to sandy shores, you never drive these roads. Like, I've been doing some observation, like players actually driving around the map, and most of the people are using the interstates, which makes just the driving and the map in general just so forgettable, kinda, I believe. And so much detail get lost because clearly Rockstar Games does care about details, right? Like, there's details in every corner, but they're just there without any purpose. Most players are not driving through these roads. And that's why I believe in making an interstate, right? All around the map. So stuff is better reachable and easily reachable. Was kinda a mistake. And I just believe having more challenging roads and winding roads and interesting, that you have to drive the scenic route, right? Because in GTA San Andreas, I have the map open right here, you have to drive the scenic route to reach important destinations. Like, let me show you. So to basically drive San Fierro, probably you guys are aware of the map or know the map better than you than your own house, like it's our neighborhood, you know. But the interstates in GTA San Andreas are actually not really a shortcut to the important. Like, if you want to drive from Los Santos to San Fierro, you have to take the scenic route, right? You're driving through this road, through the forest, through this tunnel, and you can see how much complexity the roads have in terms of, it has winding roads, elevation. Basically, the nature is in the way. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, since the nature is in the way, you are not really able to reach the destination so fast as in like in GTA 5. And that's why I believe that's one of the reasons why most people think the GTA San Andreas map feels bigger than a GTA 5 map. Because just how easily reachable everything is. And it's kind of taking the charm away, and kind of people don't take the scenic route anymore, right? So, now another point is how big and wide the roads are. That's another point I want to make. So in GTA San Andreas, right, when we look at Los Santos, I mean Las Venturas, that's not where I want to go. When we look at the roads in Los Santos, they are not really taking much space of the city, as you guys can see. Like, the roads are really thin, and basically, there's still a lot of rooms for buildings and interesting locations. But if we look at the GTA 5 map, look at how much space the roads are taking away from the city. It makes the city feel so small in comparison to GTA San Andreas, and just, take so much space which could be betterly used. Like, let's look at this intersection, for example. How big is that? How big is this intersection? Why is there such a big intersection? I would understand if it's used basically in a downtown area, but near a hood area where, what I'm trying to say, you could do the modes smaller and pack more buildings and stuff. It would expand, firstly, the ghetto, because I always felt like the GTA 5 ghetto area always felt so cramped and packed and basically so small compared to the GTA San Andreas map, that this could be fixed by just making thinner roads. And GTA 4 doesn't have it as well. And that's why the Liberty City map of GTA 4 just feels so much more dense and detailed than the GTA 5 map. Especially because if you look at, for example, now, this view, right? You're driving through all these buildings. They're so far apart and not really in your view that you don't really attention to them. Like, let's look at GTA San Andreas. The roads are so small and there's so much stuff surrounding it and in your display, basically, that you are aware of the surrounding buildings, right? Like, let's look at here. You're pretty much aware of the fire station right here, of this white building, of this building, and it makes the buildings way more memorable than when you have such a big road and the buildings just kind of like, they're not important. They're basically so much on the side that you basically forget most of the buildings you're even driving through because you're not aware of them. And I'm not trying to say that the buildings in GTA 5 are boring, but they're just so not really part of the. They're not in your focus, right? That's what I mean. Also, another point I want to make is if you look at the skyline in GTA 5, it always felt so fucking small. Am I allowed to say this on YouTube? I don't know. Whatever. It's so small because there's so huge gaps between these buildings because of the wide roads. Like, just look at it. When you compare to the GTA 4 skyline, it was also packed in so many buildings. It felt so big. But in GTA 5, you can see there's so much gaps you can look through in the skyline of GTA 5, and the skyline just generally feels so small because there's not enough space for it because of the roads. And as I said, I understand this decision. The map, like driving, becomes way more easier with wide roads. But that's the point I'm trying to make. In my opinion, GTA should not be have a map that is easy to drive, but having a map to drive that is just interesting, challenging, and memorable, which was the case in GTA San Andreas 100%. Like, especially roads like these where you have to do a lot of turning, you know? Like, if you look at the roads in GTA 5, they are going through all the city, right? There's a straight road through all the city, and you can just reach from A to B pretty fast. And that's why I also believe most of the people say the GTA San Andreas map feels bigger than the GTA 5 map. So, now that I basically ranted about the roads, or not really ranted, but we are now over with that road topic. Now we are in topic 2. We are talking about the buildings. The buildings in GTA 5, the most obvious, obviously they have no interiors, barely any interiors, which makes the buildings in GTA 5 so useless and more like a decoration. In GTA San Andreas, you still had a lot of memorable buildings, especially like this animation right here. Everyone knows. Like, you can't tell me you don't know this animation, right? And then you have places like Pizza Stack, right? Is it called Pizza Stack? No, it's Pizza Well Stacked Pizza. Exactly. You have this building right here. You have a barber shop right here, right? And I'm not talking about GTA 5 doesn't have that, even though it doesn't. Like, it doesn't have Burger Shot, it doesn't have Clucking Bill, and it just doesn't have such interesting buildings, sadly. In GTA 5, it's also more forgettable because most of the stuff doesn't have a branding. Like the clothing store, for example, in GTA San Andreas always had a branding, Zip, Binco. But in GTA 5, if you go to a clothing store, it's just a clothing store without the branding. It's just forgettable, you know? It's just called Discount Store, and that's not the name people remember. So it's not only that GTA 5 has less interiors, but that the interiors are not really memorable. They're not memorable. That's the issue. And also not really functional. Because you have a lot of interiors in GTA 5 which are only used in missions. They're not accessible via free roam. And I believe that's a really huge issue because most of the buildings, like Los Santos has so many buildings which are just forgettable, right? And it kind of makes the map also forgettable. Another issue is that there's no interesting buildings outside of Los Santos. And I think people complained about it the most because most of the people are just, and GTA Online, for example, is a good example that most of the players are just inside Los Santos, but not really are going outside of Los Santos. And there's a reason for that. It's just how boring the countryside is. Let me explain. So if you look at Pilito Bay, right? Which area would you say is an interesting area? Like, you have the bank, okay, that's a pretty memorable location because the story took place there and there was a big heist. But other from that, what interesting stuff does have Palito Bay? Yeah, that's right. There's not really much. And even though there are some interesting buildings in Palito Bay, for example, you have the hen house, right? It's a nightclub, which could be utilized. It could be made more alive, but the city just feels so empty and just placed like Palito Bay just feels like. Rockstar Games did notice they are doing a lot of stuff in the Los Santos area, but not a lot at the countryside, and they want players to basically, utilize the map and basically drive in between. So they just slapped another town at the end of the map, which wasn't really greatly utilized. It's just such a forgettable town that most people, just forget about it and not really do anything there because it just doesn't have any interesting structures, right? If you look at it, it's just block houses and basically you reused buildings. Now you have Willys, right? Maybe it's also not really interesting. What is the supermarket? It's not even functional. Like just the building designs and structures, it doesn't feel great, right? And GTA San Andreas did it so much better. If you look, for example, at the towns, at the desert, for example, they all have kind of like a unique theme. So in GTA San Andreas, you have towns which are basically have a unique theme. Like you can see this town right here, it has some Western style, right? And then you have this big cog structure, which is also it makes the town less forgettable because you have unique structures like these that you don't find. But in Palito Bay, for example, you have all these structures which could have been straight taken from Los Santos. Like, what makes them unique? There's nothing unique really about them, and it makes this part of the map just so useless, and people are just not utilizing the whole map. And I don't, I wouldn't say it's because right there's not another big town because GTA San Andreas had big towns right on the sides of the map, so obviously people are driving like through all the countryside and stuff. But I believe if they did more interesting towns, right, because small towns are not really more like less boring, right? Like small towns can still be really exciting to explore, have unique structures, but you could clearly see where Rockstar Games' focus went, and it's basically just a city. Now another topic I want to say is trains in GTA 5. And I think trains are just such a underutilized component in gaming. Like, is there any game map which really utilizes trains? You have Red Dead Redemption 2, right? You have trains there. And what is so interesting about it? If you take the train, you see parts of the map you wouldn't see with a car. If the GTA 5 map had a train station with passenger trains that you could basically drive through the map like it's another sort of transportation, you would basically see lots of different areas than with a car, which would make it would make it more interesting. You have this in GTA San Andreas. If you take the train in GTA San Andreas, you see parts of the map you wouldn't see with a car. Like for example, drive through this bridge, this tunnel, this bridge, right? You would drive past this structure right here. It's just so interesting. But in GTA 5, the train tracks, they're just going all around the map. I don't even understand why there's even a freight train driving across it. Like there's no point for the train to like it just enters Los Santos and there's nothing. There's no stop for it. And I believe trains could really benefit and make the map feel bigger because you're exploring different areas. And it's just a shame that Rockstar didn't really utilize trains as well as in GTA San Andreas, where you could enter the train, drive it, explore different parts of the map, because the trains are not only driving near where you would drive a car, but they're actually driving through interesting locations, right? So now we're at the third component, the last one. And I think most of you guys already heard of it by now. If you take away the mountains in the GTA 5 map, you have so much empty space. You have so much space which just wasn't really used properly. And what GTA San Andreas did way better was that the roads are actually leading through mountains, right? And now we are basically back at the roads, but it's just when you have a mountain at the GTA San Andreas map, there's actually roads leading through it, right? Which makes the mountains not like just empty terrain, but it actually makes sense having them there. It basically gives the road such a natural elevation and makes the roads more challenging. And in GTA 5, you have the roads basically just around the mountains. Like, look at this, for example. All the roads are basically, there's no road on this mountain right here. The train is underneath, there's the road, right? It's just going all around the mountains, but it's not really going through the mountains. Like here you would have like all these winding roads like here. But sadly, this is such an unutilized area that it's just useless to even talk about it, sadly. Also, another point is how the countryside of GTA 5 doesn't feel mysterious enough. And let me explain. Basically, what I believe the GTA 5 map could have done better is better utilize deserted areas. So what I mean by that is not really make it less like empty, but what I think the GTA San Andreas map did so great in the forest area especially is how deserted this area feels like. Like, let me show you. I have an area, for example, at Flint County. Basically, when you are inside the forest, you see no civilization. Like, you still have a lot of elevation, right? You have, like, and there was a river nearby, yeah, right? But you don't see any sign of civilization, as you guys can see. There's no sign of civilization. You feel like you're really disconnected from civilization. It makes it so mysterious because there's nothing nearby. It's just an unexplored area, right? It's an unexplored area where people are usually not are. And it makes it so mysterious, and that's why I believe the GTA San Andreas had such a big myth mountain, basically so many myths, because it had deserted areas like this where you could base on so many cool and interesting myths. While in GTA 5, it doesn't matter where you are, you always see a sign of civilization. And I think it also has kind of to do with the draw distance. But you still, like, for example, you have the Pelito Forest right here. Like, even when you're inside the forest, you have civilization everywhere. You can't be so deep into the mountains that you see nothing about civilization. And the issue is when you're on top of the mountain where there is nothing, you just look down there and you see civilization again. You don't feel like you're far away from anything. And I think this is also a really big point why the GTA 5 map feels smaller than the GTA San Andreas map. Alright guys, and that's it from today's video. I think it's a really interesting topic, and like I've said, this is just my personal view and opinion, and basically the way I want to design Roxwood, right? And take inspiration rather from the GTA San Andreas map than the GTA 5 map. And as I've said, I understand the design decisions Rockstar made, and they're by no means wrong. I don't think there's a right and wrong in these cases, in this topic. But I believe you could still improve upon stuff which basically most players still wish for, right? A challenging map, a map that feels big, you know, a map that is really greatly utilized. And yeah, I think these are the points, right, where the GTA 5 map kind of lags on and could improve on to become an even better gaming map. But yeah, leave your comment down below. You know, I'm always listening to feedback. I also want to know what you guys think about this topic. Just share it in the comments down below, and we see us in the next video.